My journey from atheism to enlightenment, it hasn't been pretty, but I can tell you what I've learned. I've learned that we are limitless and that all of our power, it lies within. The truth, it's been hidden. So if you're ready to step in and take your own power back, then welcome to your fate. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of Fate. How's everybody doing today? On today's show, I have psychic medium Ali Battaglia. She is here to tell us her journey and let us know how she's giving back to help awaken and enlighten others. Ali Battaglia, welcome to your fate, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Well,
Glad to be
thank
here.
you for trusting me enough to just, pop on to my podcast. Um, I've only asked a few people to be on the show, and lately a lot of them all of them have been from TikTok because I spend time on TikTok and I follow certain people that resonate with me. And I came across you came up on my FYP, and I had started watching you because you do something that's called the magic penny experiment. Can you explain what that is and why you've been doing that on TikTok?
Yeah, so the Magic Penny experiment is basically 365 days of gifting. And I'm doing this to help people to realign back to their truth of infinite supply, infinite energetic supply. And as I experience the miracles that come in from that infinite, that law of infinite gifting in return, I'm trying to share that to help people sort of inch their way out of the old and into the new earth that we all want to experience.
I talk often about the fact that there is at this time in our existence a great awakening that I believe is occurring on the planet, where a lot of people are waking up to their gifts. A lot of people are out there as light workers, healing other people, helping them remember who we are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? Did you have a spiritual awakening? Were you always gifted? How do you experience your gifts? What is your what's your story, Ali?
So my gifts first came online back in December of 2000 when I was in a near fatal auto accident. And during that experience, a divine being saved my life. And when I was in the hospital rehabilitating, I started noticing that my clairaudience had come online. I had never experienced that before. So I was hearing a voice, sort of like in my mind's ear. And that's how my activation towards service sort of started, as well as my clairaudient gifts. Later on down the line, the clairaudience started to sort of lessen. And then I went through a period where I became clean and sober. And then after a couple months after I became clean and sober, the visions started coming online. And now the visions have sort of taken the main stage, and the clairaudience is there, but very far and few between.
That's fascinating. All right, I kinda wanna dive into this because it must have been, or was it, shall I ask, overwhelming for you? And when you started experiencing uh, this new ability to perceive your environment? And my other question is, what the hell do you mean an entity saved you? Can you can you explain a little bit more about that sentence that we glazed over?
Yeah. So I was in a really bad auto accident. I fell asleep at the wheel. I went off the road. I was going about 75, 80 miles an hour. So I hit the sidewall, flipped over it, and landed down in a drainage ravine. So where I landed, there was these 15-foot cement walls on either side of me. So when I came to, I realized that nobody had seen me go off the road, and I was down there by myself. I don't know how long I was unconscious for, but I climbed out of the car. I wasn't able to walk because of the injuries that I had sustained, but I remember there was just this big cement wall that went straight up. And I remembered back to those stories of people who get superhuman strength, and I was like, I'm gonna climb this wall. And of course that didn't work. So I yelled thinking maybe there's somebody, a homeless person, and some anything. And I yelled and nobody answered. And so I started praying. And I said, Dear God, please help me. And then as soon as I started praying, I heard a voice come from the sky. And it was coming from about 150 yards from where I was to my left. And it was a male voice. And it said, Come this way. And I was freaked out because I knew it wasn't human. But at the same time, I was desperate. So I just started crawling towards where this voice was coming from. And when I got to where it was coming from, there was nobody there, nothing. And I looked around me and I noticed there was this big, huge pile of cement bags that were just high enough to where I could get out. And so I climbed up and I was able to flag down help.
Oh my god. That what okay. So you got help, you got rehabilitated, you you healed from that accident, and from that point on, you started hearing this entity or just what were you hearing when you said my clear audio switched on? What does that mean exactly?
It was like a voice in your mind's ear. So you can hear a voice talking in your mind's ear. So it's not audible like I can hear you right now. It's just sort of like, how to explain it? Like you can hear people in your dreams. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I started getting a bunch of downloads. I started getting like downloads about what was going to take place in the economy. I started getting messages about what I was supposed to do, that I was supposed to start playing music, a bunch of stuff about spirituality. And it was very overwhelming. I was in shock. I was in shock about the accident, but then there was this almost like euphoria taking place in that tragedy because I knew I had come in contact with a divine being, and it changed my faith and my belief,
What
like I grew up Catholic. I always knew there was angels. I believed in God, but you never know for sure until you know what I mean. And like I knew for sure, and like I don't know, I was activated towards just like wanting to do whatever it is I came here to do.
when you say you were getting downloads and you heard a voice, are you just the receiver or are you able to interact and communicate back? Can you ask specific questions? Will it literally have a dialogue with you?
Back then, it was very clear and it was like a dialogue. It wasn't like sometimes like my mind would question. Sometimes it would be like, is that what I heard? Was that me or was that them? So there was confusion. So most of the time it was me receiving. I wasn't really to the point to where I could have a conversation back and forth like I can now with the visions. The visions are a lot easier because I see it and that's what it is. There's not really a question.
Mm.
Was that me or was that them type thing?
Okay. Where were you at within your spiritual development when you had this accident? Were you going to church regularly and you were part of an organized religion? Did this ignite a spiritual awakening within you, this experience in general, or where were you when this happened?
I had grown up going to Catholic school, going to church, but I was 24. So I wasn't really going to church at that time. I believed in God more in just what I learned in a religious sense. After the accident, I had more of a like went from religion more to spirituality.
That makes sense. You know, I talk to a lot of mediums and psychics that channel collectives, that get downloads. So I'm very familiar with what you're telling me. Most people that I talk to that have interactive dialogue with an entity, energy, whatever you want to call that, they end up calling themselves something, I talked to people that their entity was called Raymith, their entity was called Noah, their entity was called Oben. Do you have a name? Are they a collective? Are they an interdimensional being? Are they angels? Do you have any insight as to how they present to you?
Yeah, so I have a team. I have a galactic team of 12.
Oh,
And I have an Arcturian guide, I have a Lyran guide, I have a Syrian guide. I've got Mary and Jesus. I've got Archangel Michael. So I have a group of 12. And they speak to me mostly. I have like the spokesman. I call her Clarity. She's the Arcturian guide. And that's the one I usually communicate with. And she sort of speaks for the collective. Sometimes, though, like when I really want something specific, like I'll ask, bring in my Lyran guide and I'll talk to them more specifically. So it depends. But if there's just one spokesman, it's usually Clarity.
do you know why? Number one, was that accident always supposed to happen to you to start you on your enlightened path? Because I'm finding as I'm learning about spirituality, I've gone through I am in the midst of my own spiritual awakening, which is why I started the show. Um, was that always supposed to happen to you? And now that it has happened to you, has it completely altered your belief system on the nature of who we are, the nature of reality, what God is? And can you speak a little bit upon your new belief system since this has happened to you?
It changed my life completely. It activated me towards mission. I've never been the same since. And ever since that point, the last 25 years, I've had a lot. It's been a metamorphosis. There's been several awakenings that have taken place. I had the first awakening. I was dedicated towards mission. I was told to start learning how to play music. So I started that and I was really into that for a good 15, 20 years. And then I went and I experienced the twin flame catalyst. And I was in that for 11 years. So I've graduated from that since. But that's when I really started doing the inner work. That's when I became a tarot reader. That's when I got all the counseling certifications and that sort of stuff. So it was almost like another reawakening when I went through that part. That's when I got clean and sober and when the visions came online. And then, it's sort of been like little mini awakenings and they keep coming as opposed to one big one.
I do think that once you start your awakening journey, you are always unfolding and evolving and learning and gaining more insight and becoming more conscious. And I do feel like I'm going to be on that path myself. You're way ahead of me in that game, but I don't know if I'll ever get gifts, of visions and whatnot. But I do feel like I'm going to be on this path of ever expansion of my own insights, awareness, consciousness until I am here no more. Um, what have you learned that has impacted you most since you have started receiving insights, information, from beyond this plane?
One big thing that I've learned is that there are a lot of benevolent galactic races that are here to assist. And a lot of those galactics are on our personal guide teams, much like the angelics. They work hand in hand. Um, there are elementals. I started seeing, dragons. I started seeing unicorns and the fae, the fairies. Um, all that stuff is very real. It's in the etheric plane, and a lot of them are just helpers. So that was a big eye opening. Growing up Catholic, none of that stuff was presented to me. I thought that, my whole perception of God and, believing like not believing that there's a hell, believing that this is a learning school, so to speak, for us to learn and grow spiritually, come back into our truth or self-awareness
Yeah.
of who we are as one with God.
Yeah. What's your take on what God is? I have my own take right now. I'm sure it's going to evolve and change throughout my life as I grow and learn, but where are you at with the God concept?
Well, the thing is about being psychic is that you still don't know everything. Like, you can ask questions and you're not getting an answer. You know what I mean? So for me, what God is still very much theoretical. And I don't ever want to say that I know something for sure if I don't. You know what I mean? My current perspective of what I view God as is consciousness. It's almost like the way I view it is that it's one divine knowing being, but also almost like a flame, right? And it lights another candle. So those two, it's part of that flame. It's made of the same thing, and it's always connected, interconnected with like the law of entanglement, right? And it's just many flames.
Mhm.
So God is the one flame. And so God, it's like beyond what our mind can comprehend, multidimensional, where God can be part of us and God at the same time. That's my current perspective.
I align with that. I'm under the impression that God is everything. God is in every universe and every galaxy and every archangel and every interdimensional being and every ET and everything. And we are all fractals of that consciousness, that energy. And I believe in the concept of oneness. I believe we're all connected at the end of the day, that everything is energy. Time gets a little weird. Time is not real. We perceive time literally in a linear fashion, but that's like a human concept. The time seems to be more of a loop that never ends. That's a whole nother podcast getting into time. I don't want to crawl down that rabbit hole. Do you consider yourself like a light worker of sorts that are, because when I watch you on TikTok, it does seem like you are um trying to light a flame under people to start understanding more about themselves and who we are. What are you doing now?
I'm just trying to be of service the best way that I can without like, and I don't know if you call me a light worker in the term of what that's mainly used for. I would say yes. But I'm just basically trying to help in any way that I can. Anybody, no matter where they're at on their journey. And I think one of my personal passions is to help bring people back into that truth that lack is an illusion.
Yes, that's amazing. You talk about using totems. Let's get into your visions and how that started to happen, and what a totem is, and what does it mean when you see certain things they lead that they're connected to concepts or symbols, and you're like, what is that? What is that, Allie?
Okay, so basically, when my visions first came online, I was seeing a bunch of visions at once, or a bunch of visions at a time, and I wouldn't know what they meant. Like it was almost like I would be like, okay, I see a deer. I'm gonna go look up the spiritual meaning of deer, and that's sort of. And I tried to figure it out symbolically, because it's a lot like charades.
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they're showing me pictures, so I've got to figure out what they mean. Now, during this time, I was watching another reader who had similar gifts that I had just started receiving, and she used like totems and like almost like this dictionary of a way to speak with her guides so that she knew what they were talking about. And I was like, oh my God, that would make everything so much easier. So I sat down and I just wrote a big dictionary of like, okay, rabbit means new beginnings. Brush means brushing the kinks out of something. This means that. And I made this whole entire dictionary of everything I could think of. And I was like, okay, dear guides, use this to talk to me. I'll know what you're talking about. And then I asked them, speak to me in sentences. So I know like the first thing goes with the next one, like it's a sentence. So I sort of came up with my own way to communicate so that I would know what they were talking about. And that's sort of how it came to be.
What when these gifts started coming online for you, and I know it's been a while now, but what did your friends and family think? Did you tell them? Were you fearful of telling everyone for being looked at as weird or crazy? Or how did that part of your social uh, life play out?
I have a big family. I have a lot of brothers and sisters. And at first, I think like my mom was always gifted. Like she did automatic writing most of our lives. And we believed her, but we didn't believe her. Like we believed her, but we did. You know what I mean? So once my gifts came online, it was almost like that. Like they believed me, but they didn't. So it was a little weird, you know. Of course, when you're that close to somebody, they judge you for who you were, not who you were becoming. So that was hard. Some as things started becoming more clear, like now they're like okay, but it was not an easy transition to get from where I was to where I am, just because it's your family.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, now that you are where you are, do you get a lot of affirmation that the readings you give people or whatever are accurate and come to fruition or are, backed up with real evidence of it being true information you're getting? How do you get confirmation?
Most of the confirmation I've gotten has been
Okay.
positive. You know what I mean? I think it's spot on. But nobody's ever come to me and told me like that wasn't spot on. So there could have been times where it wasn't. And what I started doing was I started testing
Mhm.
myself because I wanted to know like how accurate is this? So I started testing myself with numbers. And me and my friend he'd think of a number and I'd be like, okay, this. And I realized that like, okay, wait a minute, like sometimes there's interferences and I started going down that whole road, seeing how like, okay, like, you know, after rigorous testing, I came to find out that I'm about 75 to 80% accurate.
Wow.
So it's another journey, you know, but you realize that like, it's not that you're not seeing correctly. It's that there are interferences coming from outside forces, whether that be an entity, whether that be something else trying to throw you off. So you can see clearly, but you're seeing the whole gamut. So you really got to start feeling what does it feel like inside? Okay. And practicing discernment.
Do you have a daily spiritual practice? Do you meditate daily? Do you go into trance? Do you do any trance channeling? Do you ever let the other entities speak through you? Do you do anything like that?
No, I don't do anything like that. Before I tap in, I just set the field. I do a whole little protection thing that I do. I call in my specific guide team. I clear the space, and that's sort of how I do it. But no, I've never channeled. I never really wanted to.
Mhm.
I never tried. I don't know. That's not for me. I don't know. It just freaks me out.
I can totally understand that. It would be very hard for me to give up control and let something else take the wheel. Like I'm always fascinated by people who do. I've interviewed a couple of channels and it's fascinating and it's profoundly wise words that they speak from these other entities. And I'm always grateful that I get the opportunity to listen. But it would be difficult for me to give up, my own consciousness and let somebody else step in. Do Are you now at the point where you're giving readings on a regular basis? Full disclosure, you gave me a reading. I don't know if you remember, but you did give me a reading and it resonated with me. But are you giving readings on a regular basis now to people to help them with their own struggles in life?
Yeah, so I don't charge for readings right now. I haven't really charged for readings ever since I had another awakening. So I actually stopped charging for readings before I started the Magic Penny experiment.
Mm,
But I basically no, I don't charge. I get a constant influx of requests. So I'm just basically just taking them as they come.
Interesting. I love that. So the reason why I kind of asked you to come on in particular, even though I see a lot of spiritual people on TikTok that are out there giving people information was when you would come in and you do, you do day of whatever of the magic penny experiment, and then you would just go into your reading. And so many times your readings, it felt like you were talking to me. And I'll tell you the one instance where I'm like, I'm going to ask this person to be on the show because it's weird that it's so spot on. When I have health issues and when I go, and I listen to these headphones with these particular binaural beats and whatever. But when I'm in there, I like to envision myself, um, because one of the things I haven't been able to do is work out and be physical. Like, so I haven't worked out in over a decade. I used to be a gym rat. But when I'm in my meditation, I'm trying to manifest my health. I always envision myself playing basketball. And
Oh,
and I don't know if you remember this, but in one of your readings, you say, something like, and I'm paraphrasing, whoever this is for, um, "You're here to play ball." She's like, "I'm seeing a basketball." And I was like, "That's so weird." That is what I think about when I'm meditating in order to, like, shove myself into a world in which I am fully healthy and all of my abilities are online again and I can push my body is I I'm in a basketball court. It's in the middle of the desert and I'm playing basketball by myself. And when you said this reading is for somebody and you say, "I see a basketball." I don't know if that means anything to anybody. I was like, that is so bizarre. And the other day, I recently had my labs drawn, and you said something like, "If whoever needs to hear this, you need to start eating food with more iron." And my labs just came back, and my doctor had said, "You have low iron. You really need to start eating foods with more iron." So, like, for some reason, when I listen to you, you say things to me that are accurate. And I don't know how that works. I really don't find it magical. It's the other reason why I reached out to you and to get a reading anyways. And I think one of the things I asked you was, am I ever going to fully heal? And
mhm.
you did say that I was going to eventually heal. I should have replayed the thingy before I interviewed to kind of, like, go back and tick off some other things that resonated with me that you had said, but alas, I did not do that. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because it is kind of bizarre that you don't have hashtags, that you just kind of, like, say things, but almost I would say 8 out of 10 times when you get on there and you come across my FYP page, I feel like you are speaking to me. There's so many things that I'm like, "How could" it resonates with me to the point where it becomes a little bit mystical, like, "Whoa, that was so accurate." Do you have other people messaging you saying, "Oh my god, your reading was like you were speaking to me," or how often is that the case for you?
Yeah, yeah. People do message me and tell me that, like I think it's crazy because when I'm tapping in, it's a collective reading. I never know who these things are
Yeah,
for. Sometimes these things seem so random, but I'm seeing it, so I've got to say it,
yeah.
and it just it's on God. It's God using me as a vessel, and the message is going to whoever God wants it to go to. And I just sort of I learned how to keep my mind blank. So I'm just seeing it and just saying what I'm seeing. And, you
It's
know,
it's it's really,
God is,
it blows my mind a lot, when there's one other person on TikTok another one, like, I don't follow. Whenever they pop up, they pop up. And I 9 times out of 10, like, it is so in line with either what I needed to hear, what's actually happening in my own life, or it just resonates with me that it's like There is something, connectivity, whatever you want to say, that does draw energy, that draws us into certain things, and it's real. And if we pay attention to it, I think more and more people would have like a lot more synchronicities, a lot more ability to kind of follow their own inner intuition. Like you know, life's just so much more magical than we really think it is. It just is. Um, can we
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the Galactic Federation, the different entity alien civilizations that are out there that are trying to awaken humanity to who we are? What do you know about them? Can you tell us a little bit about the different categories? Let's talk aliens, shall we?
Okay. Well, all I know is my own experience. I don't really follow Galactic
Okay.
Federation. I don't really, I'm not part of any sort of federation or anything like that. I just observe one of the very first visions I started seeing was a
Mhm.
spacecraft, like the round ones. And ever since I started seeing that, I see that often. So I knew that they were trying to contact me, right? Slowly but surely, I started learning all of the like different kinds of races. There's a couple really talented readers on TikTok. I don't know if you've ever saw Kura,
Mm-mm.
ever came across her. She's really good at this kind of thing, way better than I am, right? And I started learning from her, like all the different races and stuff. And so I started communicating with my guide team and putting pieces together. Like I was always seeing a whale guide and a dolphin guide, for example. And I didn't know exactly what those meant until I realized that the Syrians are whales and dolphins. And then I was actually seeing my Syrian guides. So it came across very naturally and organic. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know anything. And then slowly but surely, I started being like, okay, I'm going to take all of the galactics and I'm going to give them totems. So if they want to communicate with me, they'll show me their totem and I'll know that that's them. And that's how I sort of started getting introduced to it. And then as I became more and more and more comfortable, I started being like, okay, I had a couple readings with Akura, and she was like, okay, these are your origin planets. She can see like what planets you had lifetimes on. And so I was like, okay. And there was a couple planets that really resonated with me. I started going and looking them up. And then I was like, okay. And I called them forth. I called forth I want my guide from Lyra. I want a guide from Arcturus, a guide from the Pleiades. And I sort of constructed my own team. And now that they're there, they'll show me their totem. And that's how I know that that's them. And then I know, like, okay, everything that comes after that is from them. Sometimes I'll actually see like their faces and the different beings as well.
See them in your head or see them physically in the outside of your body, like you see them right there?
No, a vision.
When you are getting information from them, what are they telling you? Are they telling you information that has to do with your own life, that has to do with the past, the future? Like what do they tell you?
Most of the time, it's just about my life, or if I'm doing a reading, they'll assist. Like if somebody has guides, they'll show me like the Syrian totem or the Arcturian totem, and I'll know that that person has a guide on their team from that race. So, but mostly I'm not one of those readers who really delves into like, okay, they want to tell the world, da 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 da. Like I can, if I want to tap into that and I ask them specifically for that, I can get that. But mostly it's just helping me on my journey and me helping other people.
What have they told you about your own life purpose? What are they saying about your future, what you need to be doing? What are they saying?
Well, I've downloaded a new blueprint to help local communities cross over that bridge out of the old economic system and into the new. So, downloading that blueprint has been a big um, thing that's been going on between us. So, that's the biggest thing, I think, as far as like on a worldwide scale that I'm getting. But mostly, other than that, it's just more awakenings, more
Yeah.
healings, pep
Yeah.
talks, you know?
Um, are we gonna see aliens within the next few years going full contact, full awareness of the global community being exposed to the fact that we are not alone and that we do have other races that live amongst us and out there in the universes? What do you feel about that?
I don't have a time frame, and I don't usually like to do time frames because what I've realized with just me and other psychics is that the time frames are always off because of free will, because of things are changing
Yeah.
constantly, the timelines change. So I really don't like to give timelines when I'm projecting or when I'm seeing stuff. You know, what you're seeing is usually just what's taking place in the present moment. This is your current trajectory. So timelines can
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I believe that at some point. Yes.
I think too. I do think it's going to happen sooner than later. I have absolutely no concrete reason for thinking that. I just feel like all the things that I talk about on this show, whether it be energy healing, manifestation, aliens, paranormal, angels, near death experiences, you name it, it just feels like all of this stuff is starting to bubble into our mainstream culture. And I feel like there's
Mhm.
so many people out there that are starting to awaken um to our true powers that lie within, to the true nature of what we are. And I feel like aliens are gonna be a part of that unfolding of uh the next iteration of humanity and shedding a lot of the old institutions that you already see crumbling everywhere now. It feels like everything is just starting to shed and new ways of looking at life. And people are more interested in asking the deeper questions of what and who we are, what are we doing here, and less reliant on governments or schooling or things of that nature to guide us and basically program us to believe certain things that just aren't true. Take away our own power, if you will.
Mm,
How how do
absolutely.
you feel about this great awakening? Who else are you listening to? Like, I learned a lot from, like, Dolores Cannon. I listened to, like, Neville Goddard. I listened to, people that are spiritual teachers. Do you have any spiritual teachers out there that you look to for guidance?
Not a lot. A lot of most of the stuff I get is all just coming through straight from my guide team. The only person I really ever watch nowadays and or like go to for a reading is Akira, just because she's just way more advanced than I am. And then Monarch is another one who's way more advanced
Did you find these people online, or where did you find you
on TikTok. Yeah.
TikTok's kind of amazing for spiritual, communities, don't you think? Like,
It,
it I feel like Instagram's not where it's at. It really is. If you wanna get, like, go deeper down the rabbit hole of reality, is you're going to have to find it on TikTok. I find more, information on there that I never would have found otherwise on TikTok than I have anywhere else, as far as social media goes. Um, do you have any goodies about how we came to be here on this plane?
I haven't really delved there. I think that I have trusted in what I thought I already believed
Mm,
more so than me asking them that and getting confirmation on like how did it happen. I sort of like came into it with the belief that um there's many
mhm.
planets that um that there are creator
Yes.
beings, that those creator beings create
Yeah.
planets, and that it's sort of like a never ending thing. So that's just has been my belief. but I have never really asked my guides about it directly. And I haven't gotten anything out of the blue from them about that.
Well, add that onto your list and let me know because I would love to know. It's interesting because once you start talking to people that are in the spiritual community that kind of dabble in all this, the concept of creator beings is that's not the first time I've heard that. You do keep hearing the same, if you want to call them conspiracy theories or theories in general, that all sound exactly the same, but are not accepted as any kind of mainstream theory. It is just stuff that bubbles up either from an interdimensional being or maybe ancient text, out there, dabble in it or whatever. You get a download, but I do think it's much more probably accurate that we were created by some sort of creator being, and that the Bible story that we were told probably is a sliver of truth with a lot more
Mhm.
man-made um uh story points, if you will, that were really designed to keep us controlled and fearful and locked into not investigating the power that lies within all of us. What are your thoughts on that?
I really do resonate with that notion that we're all one with God, that God is sort of teaching us how to deal with who we truly are and the magnificence that we are, and that Earth is sort of like training wheels. I believe that like a lot of us are from other planets that have lived many lives on different planets, that a lot of us came here to assist Earth right now during its ascension process. Um, the way that I would go about, like, figuring out what is this true? Is that true? Is I would make totems
Mhm.
for it. I would say, okay, ask a question, say, okay, did a spiritual being create this planet? And make a totem for it. And then what I would do is I won't go into meditation and um, sit there and ask for it. I'll wait. And then if it comes in naturally, like I'm just walking into the kitchen and I get a vision of something, then I know, like, okay, and then I'll go through the discernment process. How does it feel? And am I getting it repeatedly? And that's sort of how I would go through the process of asking.
Interesting.
But I think that there's a lot of things that people ask me about, and I'm like, I don't ask, like I don't know, like politics, things like that. Like I just don't even delve into it. But it would just be a process of doing that, like what I just
Yeah,
said.
yeah, 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 yeah. When you're out and about shopping, whatever, do do you ever get information about people that you feel like you need to reach out and tell them? Like, I've just been told you should go to the doctor, you're having a heart issues, or do you ever get downloads like that when you're out of you look at somebody and a vision comes to you, or you're supposed to tell them something, or a loved one comes in and says, "I'd like you to tell Susie over there," or like, are you able to control this sort of thing at all, or is it just random?
It's random as far as what comes in, but I very rarely have the one where go tell this person something, right? I do though have visitations from people who have passed
Mhm.
on. I will see that they sort of come find me because they know that I know that person and that I can see them. And so I'll get a vision of the actual person. And then I'll be like, okay, what do you want to say? And then they'll speak to me in the same totems, the same dictionary that I have. And that's how I get the message. So the other people from the other side, definitely. Going across just like, oh, tell this person, not really. Sometimes I'll just feel like, oh, this person kind of needs a message. I'm going to tap in and see what comes through. So I ask for it and then I'll tell them. But
Why do you think this happened to you? Do you have any insight as to why that accident allowed you to become super supernatural in a lot of ways? Like, what are your thoughts on the unfolding of your life and how kind of magical it is now?
I don't know, man. Like the way I see it, some people say like there's the chosen ones, and I never really resonated with that. I feel like I chose. I feel like I wanted to be of service, and because I wanted to be of service, they were like, "Okay, we can use you." I feel like I had chose to come here to be of service. So even beyond here choosing, I chose up there to say, "Hey, I want to help. Put me down there."
Do you know anything about your past lives yet? Have you gone that route? Have you gone into any past life regressions? Have you been getting any downloads? Like, what do you know about your past lives?
Well, Akura and Monarch are both really, really good at
Mm.
that. And from what they perceive, I have lived lifetimes on Lyra, Sirius, Arcturus, the Pleiades. Apparently, I originated from the planet Hadar. That's my first birth planet. So a lot of different planets. They shared with me that I was basically I'm a scientist who studies in the other realm. I studied planets and how quickly they come into the ascension process.
Ah.
So I go and I study like, okay, this planet came to their ascension process this quickly, and that's why. Okay, let's gather that information. And so as far as like me wanting to come down here, that makes sense to me as far as why I love science, why I love physics, why I really want to show humanity that lack is an illusion. So mostly from other people, and I resonate with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love your story. I meet so many people that are able to have these extrasensory perceptions of whether they be pick a Claire, whether you hear them, whether you see them, whether you feel them. And I'm hoping through my own process that I will unfold my own skills as far as mediumship goes. Have you done any plant medicine journeys or anything like that? You probably you
No, I've never ever have. I'm kind of a scaredy cat when it comes to that kind of
I
stuff.
mean, I get it. Like I was going through a healing crisis. I think plant medicine, they are here to teach us. They are healing, they
Uh,
are, teachers, they're healing, all of that stuff. So I wasn't scared, but it is an experience that will enlighten you and wake you up that there is like a lot more going on within our own
mm,
abilities than we think and then just what we see and with our own five senses. There's much more beyond that. That's why I started the show so I could explore spirituality, nature reality, and beyond, and everything that's paranormal and all that. And it has been like a whirlwind for me, and it's been an exciting time for me to unfold my own belief systems and learn how the nature of reality works and what we're doing here and who are we. And it's just been amazing. And I would consider you a light worker. You're out there helping others. What else you have coming up? Do you have a website where people can reach out to you? How can people get a reading from you? Anything you want to promote? What do you got?
Well, if you want a reading for me, you can find me on TikTok at the Magic Penny Experiment. You can email me at alibattaglia7@gmail.com. You can just email me and say I want a reading, and I'll just put you on the list. Um, but I am working on a blueprint that I downloaded from my guide team on how to help communities go from where we are, the old system where we are
Yeah.
now, into the new system. And it's this whole entire, it's based off of a marketplace where basically there's going to be an online marketplace for just the local community where you can just basically reach in your pocket and order anything from anybody in the whole entire community and get it delivered same day, next day.
Oh,
And this is, it's basically, the marketplace is acting as the vehicle to connect everybody and to give them the tools to help them cross over the bridge. And it's sort of like meeting humanity where it's at, hitting all of the pain points and helping them where they're at right now in the old system. Things like bringing local dollars back to local
yeah.
communities by giving them just the sheer accessibility of being able to just order something from anybody in town and get it delivered.
Yes.
Um, This is also going to connect the farmers directly to the people. So this is going to help lower food prices, but it's also going to help stimulate food sovereignty because the more farmers sell, the more they're going to farm.
Yeah.
And food sovereignty is basically just when a community can grow enough food to sustain itself. They don't have to get their food from outside. So we're working with that. And then we're trying to marry the barter exchange in with the platform. So everybody will have the option to either use cash or barter and using a barter unit system. And then the third aspect is the gifting aspect. And this is just putting the tool in front of them so that, the forerunners of the community will see like, okay, there's 50 of us. Between us, we have everything that each other needs. Let's just gift it to each other and we don't have to pay taxes on it. The whole thing is going to be nonprofit. So it's going to go through the nonprofit. So you get a tax write-off, right? And that's another reason why I'm doing the magic experiment, the magic painting experiment, to help show people how it really activates miracles in your life when you're in that state of overflow.
Yes.
But the whole thing as a whole is because we're going nonprofit, is it's going to be a money-making vehicle. So that all of the money that is made, it's pay what you can, but all the money that's made from it gets put back into the community. So this was a $1.5 million a year company that we're turning nonprofit. So that 1.5 million could go towards things like free energy,
Yeah.
food forests. So it's a bridge. It's a long story, but it's a bridge to help humanity from where they are now into where we all hope and want to be at some point.
I think that you are absolutely 100% on the right track, that everything needs to go back to being local, food, goods, all of that. I think what we have allowed to happen within the economy of the world, with the scarcity, with the lack, with the multinational corporations taking over everything, taking power away from small businesses and local communities, has been a huge detriment to the way, um, with regards to how our society runs now. And I think that going local is going to be the key to putting some power back into people's hands and allowing us to live better lives instead of living hand to mouth, instead of being in a slave economy system, which we find ourselves now, you know. And I
Mhm.
think so
Absolutely.
many people are opting out of the current system. It has failed everybody unless you're an ultra rich person or you're born in the right, zip code or whatever. And I don't think we were ever as humans meant to live in this kind of system, which is why you see so much anger, outrage, illness, all of that is based because we don't live life here the way we're supposed to be living it. You know?
Exactly.
I do believe the political system is a lot of the reason why we are in as much trouble as you see the world now, is the
Mm.
political system that we've allowed to take hold of our lives. Um, any
Absolutely.
advice for the folks out there that are starting to step on their own path of enlightenment and understanding the vastness of who we are?
Yes. Put your intention out there on what you want. I want to heal this. I want my gifts to open up. I want this. Keep your heart open. Keep moving towards it. Even if you don't know which way you're going to go, even if you have no idea, and the universe will start bringing you the right teachers. It'll start bringing you the things that you need, and you will get there. You may not get there in the way that you thought, but you will get there because your intention and your action is going to be that North Star that's going to get you there.
I love that. That's fantastic advice, and it's a perfect way to end this episode. Allie, thank you again. Like, I'll be watching you on TikTok, we'll see how much I'll be tuning into your readings, because they do really resonate with me, and a lot of really
Okay.
mystical ways. Some days I'm like, that is bizarre. So I wanted to come on and tell your story And I hope it helps other people and helps enlighten them and allows them to understand there's just like a whole bag of magic out there that they can tap into if they start focusing their intention on making it happen for themselves. So, thank you for coming on the Fate podcast. And we'll see you next week, gang, on Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. Thank you, Ali, for coming on. Check her out on TikTok at the Magic Penny Experiment. Get a reading. And with that, we'll see you next week, gang. Journey well, everyone. Bye. And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate from Atheism to Enlightenment. I mean, thanks, Ali, for coming on board and telling us your story. I mean, I just asked her on the show, quite honestly, because I had seen her on TikTok and some of the stuff that she would say to be on TikTok would resonate with me like so much, like weird synchronicity happening there. And I just got pulled to ask her to come on the show. But I didn't know that she had this fantastical story of, like, getting in an accident, being led to, safety by an entity or energy, getting audio downloads, which turned into visions, and a whole dictionary of totems that she uses to speak to her now quite large spirit team from Arcturians to whatever other alien species. I mean, it's fascinating. And I know with the rise of the internet, and we're so much more connected than we ever have been in human history, you hear stories like this much more. But I think they've been going on and happening for as long as we have been here. And I think we're in an era where they're becoming more mainstream, they're becoming more accepted, and I certainly probably would have laughed at that story and balked at it and, you know, disregarded it 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I certainly would have. And I do think you need to be open to these types of stories, I guess. But now I am just utterly fascinated, and it excites me to be living when I am, because I do think this is the next evolution of our selves on this plane, where we do start becoming who we are, which is eternal beings of light, understanding that we are connected to everything, that God, if you will, is in us. We are a part of the divine consciousness, multi-dimensional nature of our reality, energy, vibration, frequency. I mean, quantum mechanics is starting to really support a lot of the spiritual concepts. So you're going to have a blending of science and spirituality, I think, moving forward. And I don't know, I think it is just fascinating to have somebody come on and tell their story. I didn't even know what her story was. I had no clue. Turns out she had a pretty cool story. And I love that she is getting the blueprint for the next iteration of how humanity can live on this plane in a much more cooperative, conscious, and less competitive way, so we can all thrive and live the lives that we're supposed to live down here, and not this over competition, slave, dog eat dog uh, program that we are forced to live, which is basically making everybody sick, cutting our lives short, distracting us from discovering our true potential, our power that lies within. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I've got some great stuff coming up for you. Keep journeying with me. I want to keep expanding your minds, introducing you to different concepts, um, and hopefully inspiring you to get into your own spiritual practice, start doing your own research, start investigating who you are. That's why I'm doing this, gang. That's the whole point. I'm trying to raise the consciousness of this planet, step into your power, all of it. All right, I'm gonna leave it here, gang. Do me a favor, like, follow, subscribe, share, do something to support the show so I can continue my journey with you guys. With that, we'll see you next week, gang.